Hello and welcome. My name is Bettool Jabur, and on today's podcast, joining me is...
I'm Gordon McGlathery. I'm the training solutions consultant here at Symetri.
Brilliant.
And we're going to be talking about training and how technology helps us as a company deliver training.
Absolutely. So training trends is the trend of, or the topic of this podcast today, Gordon. So thank you very much for joining me today and taking the time out to be on this podcast with me. In terms of your experience with training, let's start off with the basics. Traditional training.
Yeah.
What is traditional training?
Yeah, and traditional training has been the same for the past 40 years or so, forever. Where we have a trainer who is an expert in a particular topic, and we have a group of individuals or an individual that have common learning goals, and it's about that trainer communicating that knowledge and those skills to that group of individuals. So it's knowledge transfer, but it's two-way. And I think that's the big thing, the big difference between training and just sitting down and watching a video is that with training, you're in an environment where there's two-way communication, and the trainer has an opportunity to test for understanding. So you can't really learn how to play golf by watching a video. You have to eventually swing the club. And it's good to have a good someone who knows how to play golf teaching you. And that's the same thing with learning new software skills.
I like that analogy, Gordon, because, when we think about picking up something, we always think it's going to be one direction. It's always going to be the trainer or the teacher telling you what you need to do. But actually listening to where those pitfalls are, or where the delegates or the students listening in, they might have another idea on why can't we do it this way.
Yeah, and that's
something you don't get on video, really.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bettool, because I think the thing about training is that it's not necessarily about the how, it's about the why. Why do we do this in this way? And so it's that opportunity to have that kind of discussion back and forth. Okay, yeah, I get that, but why are we doing it? And that's what a trainer can give that it can't get from a YouTube video or necessarily reading a book. And there's usually half a dozen ways to get the same result when you're using design software. And so let's discuss why this one that we're talking about makes the most sense for us. And that's what training is about.
Yeah. So you've managed a lot of trainers over the years.
I have.
Does everyone have the same personality? Does every trainer have to be a certain way in order for them to deliver a successful?
No. The trainers have as many personalities as there are learners. I think for me, there's a common theme, and I think it tends to boil down to four main things that a great trainer has to have. So that trainer, they have to be an expert. It goes without saying. They have to be a good communicator, and with someone who's an expert in something, it's not always given that they're a good communicator. So they might have the knowledge, but they may not be that great at passing that knowledge on. So that's the second key, is that that individual have to have good communication skills. They have to be a gifted communicator. You really have to, because you need to be able to understand different learner types. So someone might be a visual learner. Somebody might be an auditory learner. Somebody might be a hands-on kinesthetic learner. How do you teach a group of 6 people with all those different learner types the same topics at the same time? So you have to be a good communicator.
That's a massive challenge for one person to kind of take on board everyone in that room.
It is indeed. And so we're only halfway there, because the third component you need for a great trainer is they have to have walked a mile in the shoes of the people they're training. They have to have that industry experience to know how to get around, the day-to-day problems that people have. And then the final component, I think, my humble opinion, is that somebody has to be able, the trainer has to be willing to tailor what they do in order to meet the needs and requirements of the audience. So that they have to be flexible. They have to be willing to throw out what they did last week and do something new this week. So
yeah. I like that, because I've never thought of those four being put together. You always just think, okay, well, they're either a good trainer or they're not a good trainer. But to have those four key skills, being an expert, communication, being able to kind of listen as well, and adapt and be agile. I think that's key in a lot of positions. It's not just a trainer. But do you think people are born as trainers, or do you think they can, if they're good at two of those, then rather than the four of them, would you still take them on and let them train up?
We have indeed, sure. And I think all those skills can be learned. It's not something that you're necessarily born with. All those skills around good questioning and good facilitation skills and managing different learner types, learning about the way that different people learn. I mean, that's a bit of an eye-opener, I think, to a lot of trainers when they go through our train-the-trainer training program, is that they learn, okay, right. And they realize, actually, I'm that kind of learner, but there are three other types of learners. And okay, I've got to think about how to teach a topic to them and what will appeal to them. So that's it's all something that can be learned, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in terms of, so that was traditional kind of, well, not really traditional. That was just what a person should be, what a tutor or trainer should be. But taking this onto the virtual environment that we live in now, everything is done virtually online, and we've got things like AI, artificial intelligence, being used in a lot of things. How did you then help move your practice from being a traditional person in front of a traditional classroom, as per what we have been used to all of our lives, to then transition that to becoming a virtual instructor-led training environment?
Yeah.
How did the training trends change?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most inspirational things that I have seen in my professional careers, how our training team was able to take what they learned and through the being forced to find out a different way to teach in a virtual environment during the pandemic, when we couldn't be in person, face to face. We had to come up with lots of new skills and new ways of accomplishing the same things, because as a trainer, one of the things that you rely on when you're in a classroom is the subtle communication that you get from people on your training course, like the body language, a raised eyebrow, shrug of the shoulders, a little bit of a confused look. Well, how do we get all of that in a virtual environment? So we all had to learn a different way of teaching, and necessity is the mother of invention, of course. And so 3 years ago, we had to learn very, very quickly. And I know that you were on the forefront of that effort too here. And for me, it is about a lot of it has to do with the platform, is having the right platform to teach on. And I would say 5 years ago, we didn't have that. We're talking about technology. 5 years ago, the technology wasn't really there. 3 years ago, around about the time that the pandemic hit, was around about the time we started to discover, there are tools that will help us create a virtual classroom that can deliver the same results as a physical classroom. And And so we spent a lot of time trying to find the right platform. We think we found it. We've been using it ever since. And it gives a trainer what they need to succeed. And what they need to succeed is that interactive, two-way communication. They need to be able to have a good rapport with people on their training course. They need to be able to test for understanding. And I think that's a big thing you need as a trainer. Say, okay, so people are nodding. Say, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. Okay, do you really? Okay, you need to show me that you've got it. So it's still, it still needs to be a hands-on environment. And it's got to be an environment people are comfortable, where they're comfortable to make mistakes, to experiment. And there's got to be that two-way communication, that discussion around, okay, why are we doing this? So we had to have the right platform that helped us do that. And
so in essence, you've added a fifth to the things that
yes, the five we now. Yes, indeed, you're quite right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having that technology and being in the forefront of it, like you mentioned, I quickly realized that actually virtual instructor-led training provided more or gave more to our clients, even though you're working from your own home. So it gave you that comfort that a lot of the shy delegates or students that used to come on the courses would now be able to, open up and talk about, because you've got this barrier, which is a computer screen, but in essence, you can dive in as much as you like because you're in your comfort zone. You've got your house slippers on, you're at home, you've had your own cup of tea or whatever, you've had your comfortable routine. And so it gave those shy people, I think, a boost to kind of be able to do or ask the questions that they wouldn't have been able to ask.
Yeah.
Especially that we've got the breakouts. Technology allows you to have breakout rooms. In a normal classroom, people will feel shy to put their hands up. As much as what a tutor would say, oh, please raise your hand, someone else will have the same question, or please just speak out. It gives people the ability to have their own rooms virtually and ask the instructor and not feel shy.
Yeah, just like they would have a quiet conversation with a trainer in the classroom.
Yeah, but even still, you hear the whispers.
Yeah, so and it's even more private. Yeah, so it's not. So yeah, so that's a boost. It's a different dimension, and so you have that ability to have a breakout one-to-one with the trainer in a way that you wouldn't in a classroom. You can also do other things with the technology around virtual training that you can't do in the classroom. And I read every single evaluation that comes in from all of our customers. And I read comments like, oh, I love virtual training because it allowed me to have my screen right next to the instructor's screen. So I could have my two screens side by side. Is a much better way for me to learn. Hadn't thought of that. And another. I remember reading a comment, and more than one, where someone on a virtual course is getting a screen grab of what they've got on their screen, so they can save that view in a way that, of course, you couldn't in a classroom. Still, others, I think, or as you say, that they're more comfortable in that kind of environment where they can set up their own how they feel most comfortable learning at home or in the office, and they're actually more outgoing as a result. So, but we still we want to replicate as much as we can that we would have in a physical classroom. So. We have everybody having their cameras on so everyone can see everyone else. The trainer can see everyone's faces and everybody's screens at the same time, which is the way that they would work in the classroom.
You wouldn't really get that in the classroom because you'd have to kind of walk around.
Yeah, you couldn't do them all at the
same time. No. So it's almost having CCTV. You've got everyone's monitors available, and you can see who's struggling, who's further behind, and help them out, maybe. Okay, so this takes us to, we've looked at the reasons why things has been established, kind of. But were there any other reasons why, your organizations just said, right, okay, now we're going to be going ahead with virtual instructor-led training? What was the driver?
Yeah, so what's been interesting for me, we're 3 years away from the pandemic now. It's 3 years away from the start of this journey for us with virtual training. And about a year and a half in, when we were still right in the middle of the pandemic, we were kind of thinking, well, what will it be like when this all ends? What will happen to virtual training? Will people rush back to the classroom now that we're back to being face-to-face in person? I kind of predicted that it would still be about 50-50. I thought, this is just such a great solution for so many situations that we're going to still be doing this maybe half of the time. Now that we're back to fully offering in-person training, I actually see that number is probably more like 80% of our customers are staying with virtual training as their preferred method of learning. And I think that's for all sorts of reasons. It suits their new hybrid way of working, and people in most companies still have a hybrid approach to mixing office and home work. We have people during these past few years have realized actually we don't need to spend money on travel and accommodation to get to a training center when the virtual training that we've received delivers the same results. We've seen companies tell us, well, look, delivering this training just wouldn't be possible in a physical setting if we've got 2 people in Bristol and 2 people in Glasgow and 2 people in London all needing to attend the same course. It wouldn't be practical from a financial standpoint, and lots of other reasons. I speak to people who organize training and say, you know what, Gordon, it's just such a pain for us to get all these computers together into a conference room, and just booking a conference room for a few days in a row is impossible at our office. And so there are all sorts of reasons that ever they wouldn't have thought about a year and a half ago.
It's being more sustainable. You've got it's more practical. It kind of goes to the market of those who work in hybrid, but also to those who are coming into work. I think it's crucial to see it from their perspective as well. So those who are coming into work as in the newly arriving in the world of work. So maybe just graduated from university. And the workplace can be quite scary maybe for some people to join them. And so it's giving those people a boost as well, giving them the confidence to be able to work, because they know if something goes wrong, they can just close the laptop, and it's not going to be the end of the world. It's one of those things where I think we're contributing to a greater audience now. We're being able to access a lot more skills that we might not have been able to before. There's the enabled person. There might be an office which is practical for someone who's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
So they can work from the comfort of their own home.
Yes.
That's catered for their needs.
Yeah. I remember you telling me a story early on during this journey, virtual training, where there's a delegate on a training course of yours that who was on maternity leave, and she attended her training course with their young baby on her knee the majority of the time. I remember that. So yeah, we would not have reached that person if we didn't have virtual training. We've had people based in California attend our training course and getting up who knows what time of day for that. We have I remember one of the first virtual courses we ever taught was we had a trainer. It was co-taught. We had 2 of our trainers sharing the teaching of the course. One was based in our Oslo office. Another was based down in Portsmouth, and the delegates on the training were in Glasgow.
Oh, brilliant!
And what a great what a great setting for a virtual course, and it just wouldn't have been possible, or just it would have been very expensive to deliver that in a traditional way.
Yeah, there's a lot of traveling, and it is definitely more sustainable. Now, we've spoken about a lot of positive points. There's got to be some challenges that you faced. I mean, we talked about finding the right technology, but what other kinds of challenges would you have been faced?
Yeah, so there are challenges. Virtual training is different to in-person training. It can deliver the same results, but it is different, and so we've had to adjust the format of our training to make it more modular, the more frequent breaks during the day, and so that's been a challenge to sort of reorganize some of the training that we traditionally delivered. I think another challenge, which I hadn't anticipated, is there are times when people on a training course, they don't respect the training because it's virtual as much as they would in person. For example, they say, at 11, halfway through the morning of day one on the course, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a meeting that I've got to go to, and I'll be back at 12. And I mean, that just wouldn't happen on a face-to-face course. So those expectations have to be managed up front. The people need to know, look, yes, this is a virtual course, but your attendance is required here for the entire.
It's
for
still
the
very serious.
Yeah,
Still very serious.
I think I think some of the other challenges. I think we still at times have to get over the barrier of persuading people that virtual training is as good as an in-person experience, and all of these benefits about virtual training wouldn't make any difference if the results were not the same, if we couldn't still deliver a great result, and we can, and so we just and I think once people have experienced it, they say, this really works. We'll carry on, and they carry on getting training in that way. So I think there's a bit of prejudice that we have to get over too.
Mm-hmm. And that takes us to the quality of training to conclude this topic for this episode. Quality of training, would you say has increased, or would you say, because now you've got that virtual fatigue that will come along, would you say that quality of training has become better because you're almost presenting all of the time, so you're constantly on video? Or would you say that the quality has been affected by virtual instructor-led training?
So as I said earlier, I read every single evaluation that comes through for all of our training courses throughout the year, and I remember looking at this. We're about 18 months into we're doing 100% virtual training, and I remember reading the feedback, and there's a way to calculate the overall sort of customer satisfaction score by the way that people rate the overall experience. And I remember reading it, and I actually took as like the first 1,500 evaluations that we got into the pandemic when it's 100% virtual, and I compared it to the 1,500 evaluations that we got before the pandemic hit when it was 100% in person, and Bettool, you could not tell the difference. They were the scores were exactly the same. And so I would say that the quality has maintained, and it hasn't, I don't know if it's increased, it hasn't decreased. I think it's for across the board. You couldn't tell the difference. Somebody's talking about their experience. You wouldn't be able to tell it was a virtual course. So it shouldn't, we've gotten to the stage now where it shouldn't matter. Whether somebody wants a virtual course or an in-person course, they're going to get the same result. And we still offer the same guarantee, the same learning guarantee that we would, that we used to. It's the same. So it has to be as good. And it is.
Yeah, well, I think that's impressive because that's a successful project. it goes to show, you take this over the course of 3 years and you're looking back and looking to see how your project has gone. You'd never left it first to say, oh, this 1 month, we're going to just trial it. If it works, we'll go for it. If not, then we'll forget about it. You kind of kept it going and kept customers happy because they're receiving what they still used to receive back in the day.
Yeah.
And to me, I think you probably, because we're increasing from just the 4 factors that you say, we're now increasing to 5 or even 6 factors that a person needs. I would probably say the quality has increased, but you see it as the same benchmark because that's what you've got to compare it with.
Yeah, I think the effort has increased for us to deliver the same results. It can be more difficult. I think a lot of our trainers will say, oh, there's no substitute for being in a room with people. And, I'm sure they're right in terms of the learning experience, but taking training in its totality, the economics, the sustainability, the convenience, the flexibility, as well as the learning, the quality of learning. If you add that all together, I think virtual training it's obviously here to stay. People haven't been rushing back to the classroom for the past 18 months. We're still doing the vast majority of our courses virtually. So it's hard. I think it's harder for us because it's tough to maintain your the fire in your belly that you have as a trainer. I think it's a little bit more difficult to do that virtually, but we've all figured out how to do it.
That's amazing, brilliant. So, in one sentence, what would you say is the difference between traditional classroom training and virtual instructor-led training? What difference would you find in just one sentence?
For me, the major difference is that the virtual training offers everything that an in-person course does, but it gives you many more dimensions as well. So for our customers, I think those dimensions make a lot of business sense for them. So
great thinking on the spot there, Gordon.
Okay. No, I didn't. No, you didn't show me about that question. That's all.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so that was the kind of our theme with regards to virtual instructor-led training versus traditional training. We spoke about the challenges, we spoke about the why now and all of that inequality, etc. Coming up next on Optimise et al. What is traditional training?
You can't really learn how to play golf by watching a video. You have to eventually swing the club.
You've managed a lot of trainers over the years.
I have.
Does everyone have the same personality? Does every trainer have to be a certain way in order for them to deliver a successful?
No. The trainers have as many personalities as there are learners. They have to be an expert. It goes without saying. They have to be a good communicator. And with someone who's an expert in something, it's not always given that they're a good communicator. So they might have the knowledge, but they may not be that great at passing that knowledge on. So that's the second key, is that that individual will have to have good communication skills. They have to be a gifted communicator. You really have to, because you need to be able to understand different learner types. So someone might be a visual learner. Somebody might be an auditory learner. Somebody might be a hands-on kinesthetic learner. How do you teach a group of 6 people with all those different learner types the same topics at the same time? So you have to be a good communicator.
How did you then help move your practice from being a traditional person in front of a traditional classroom as per what we have been used to all of our lives, to then transition that to becoming a virtual instructor-led training environment?
Yeah.
How did the training trends change?
We've gotten to the stage now where it shouldn't matter whether somebody wants a virtual course or an in-person course, they're going to get the same result.